Okay, well, it looks like we are at the top of the hour, so we'll go ahead and we'll get started here. Gabby, are you able to hear me okay? Are we recording all right?
Yep, I hear you, and we are recording. I will start turning off mics and cameras just until it's time for the Q&A section.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. Well, welcome everybody to today's webinar program produced by the Center for Renewable Energy Advanced Technological Education, the Create Energy Center. It's a pleasure to welcome you here today. And our topic today is on HelioScope software for modeling solar photovoltaic systems. Our guest presenter is Dr. Jennifer Clemons from Delaware Technical and Community College. Dr. Clemons has been a longtime Create participant and a recent addition to the Create leadership team. And we're happy to welcome her here today and hear a little bit more about how she uses HelioScope software with her students. And also she will share some lessons that she's developed for teaching newcomers to the software. So with that, I will hand things over to Jennifer. Before I do that, let me just mention that all the participants have access to the chat box. And if you have questions as we go along through the presentation, I'd encourage you to enter those there. Myself and Gabby will be monitoring the chat box, and we'll steer those questions to our speaker to handle at the end of the presentation. So Jennifer, go ahead, take it away.
All right, good morning, everyone. So today we're going to talk about HelioScope. So how I use solar design software for educational use. So like Ken said, I'm at Delaware Technical Community College, and I'm the department chair for our energy technology programs. So we have associate degree programs in energy management, renewable energy, solar, and building automation. So what is HelioScope? So this is directly from the HelioScope website, and it's a web-based sales and design tool for solar professionals. And this is really great because the web-based is really awesome because I don't have to download software on computers. I don't have to make sure the students' laptops are compatible. I don't have to worry about any of that. It's all web-based. I was working on this at home last night, and here it's in my computer in my office. I don't have to send files or anything like that. It makes really nice reports that you can give to a customer. And for myself, we're using it in the classroom. So the students are able to create these proposals that they could give to a client. How I got involved with this, actually, one of my students about 5 years ago was doing an internship and said, hey, check out this software. And at the time, as it happens with educators, I had a little grant money. So I was like, hey, why not? Let's spend it on this. So we did get the software for the first year, and they reached out to me and said, hey, for educators, we're giving this a discount. So I'm going to talk about that as well. So how we can get a free trial as educators. And recently, in August 2021, HelioScope, which is Folsom Labs, they merged with Aurora Solar. So I did attend a webinar it was supposed to answer a lot of questions on what this is going to look like. Unfortunately, it didn't answer any of the questions I wanted on what's that going to look like for educators. Are we still going to have this discount? Are we going to have any options with Aurora? Is it going to change the software? There's no changes yet have been announced, but it does sound like Aurora Solar and HelioScope are still going to remain separate entities, separate programs. If anyone here knows anything about Aurora, all I know is it's really expensive, and I have not been able to even test it out because it's way outside of my meager lab budget. So to get started, for educators and students, this is some of the things I found out. HelioScope will provide instructors an extended trial during the semester. So in the past, they extended a trial. They gave me, a couple years. And when I went to extend it over the summer, they've changed the rules a little bit. So it has to be during a semester when you're teaching a solar class. So this was a little bit of a challenge over the summer when I was working on some of this curriculum. But during the semester, I just send an email and they extend my trial. So you will be required to submit information about the courses you teach, including dates and a syllabus. So they do request a syllabus. They do request a course end date. So you'll see when we log in here, my free trial will end in December when our semester ends. HelioScope will also provide an extended semester-long trial for students. So this has been really, really helpful. When I first started using HelioScope, I purposely put the assignments towards the end of the semester, so when they were in that 30-day free trial, but they will extend a semester-long trial for students in a class. They do ask that we use our EDU email address. It is easier to have your whole class sign up together, and you send one email requesting an extension for the everyone on your class roster. So this is using the contact support email, and if at the bottom of any of their websites it says contact support, and I think it's support at Folsom Labs or something like that. It's just their default. I just send an email saying, hey, could you please extend the trial for these following students with their email address. It's a whole lot easier to do it all at once for you and for the HelioScope team. You can then take advantage. They have a lot of webinars and online training. The only thing they ask is free users don't use the chat function for help. But we'll see here in a minute, they have a lot of webinars and online training available. And with a large group, you might even be able to schedule that. In the past, the nonprofit use has been discounted to 50%. They don't really advertise what their prices are right now. So I posted a link to this, what their rules are. They just say you get a discount if you're a nonprofit, but they don't say what it is. So in the past, when I paid out of pocket for it, it was 50% for educators. So just a little bit about my program and why we're using this. So I hope a lot of you have seen the IRAC Solar Career Map. And one thing I do want to mention about my program is we've aligned our curriculum to the NABCEP Technical Sales exam. So this is a little bit different than a lot of other solar programs out there because we're not focusing on installation. So we're really focusing on technical sales. And the types of jobs I'm trying to prepare my students for are here, this is the solar sales representative on the solar career map, and also the solar site assessor. So these jobs really, we take a look at what the customer needs are. We look at utility bills. We look at their roof, their orientation, where could they put solar, those kinds of things. So this is software is really right up the alley of what I'm teaching my students and what I expect them to do out in the field. So I know there's a lot of programs out there, but we've been using HelioScope for a little while to do these types of things. So where could you use HelioScope in your curriculum? So I mean, there's a lot of places you could use it, depending on how in depth you want to go. I use this in my capstone class. So this capstone is a 4th semester in a 2-year Associate Applied Science in Renewable Energy. So right now I'm in the 3rd semester of our course in our program, and I probably could use HelioScope right now. We're in the last couple of weeks of the semester, and we could probably bring HelioScope in now, but I wait until the 4th semester because I want the students to have that full semester trial. So I don't have them sign up until January of the 4th semester. My students in this course, they've already spent a lot of time using PV Watts, which I like to use PV Watts because it gives them a lot of opportunity to, we don't have to log in. You can just, trial and error. There aren't as many options as well. So they have a lot of experience using PV Watts, using the data from there. My students also are very familiar with all the components, including inverters, balance of system, wiring, all of that. And additionally, students in my program have already taken a class in financial analysis. So they do take a full semester class on energy investment analysis. So they're looking at different types of utility bills, they're looking at different types of financing. They know all about demand charge, different finance options, including power purchase agreements. So they have a really good background before they get to use this. So that's not to say you couldn't use it earlier. And this is just how I've been using it because I want them to have a semester using it. So we wait till the 4th semester. So to sign up, I recommend you use your school email. If you want the free trial, because if you're ever going to ask to extend it, you want to have access to everything you've created in your free trial. So use your school email. It's a whole lot easier to show, hey, I'm an educator, budgets are tight, right? So it's easier to get that trial extended. So there's a lot of videos on there. They do have a lot of webinars, and every week they schedule a lot of different things. So there is a 5-minute video, and they cover a lot in 5 minutes. So I would recommend, maybe if you're doing this as a class or even just yourself, you need to really have 2 screens, because they go really fast in that 5-minute video, and it doesn't work just as quickly. I had to pause quite a bit and go back and try and figure out, how did they do that? Where did they click? So that's a really good video, but you kind of need to pause and go back and forth on that. There's another 5-minute video on commercial systems, and then there's a full webinar. So these webinars are an hour long, and they offer a lot every week. So even with the free trial, you're eligible to sign up for any of these webinars. So you can see there's several each week. So this is new in Spanish, but there's a lot of different ones. So it worked out the first time I used this in the classroom. This time just happened to work with my class. So I just had the whole class sign up for the webinar, and we did it. If you have a large class, they might actually schedule one for you for these 60-minute webinars. But if you can't make one of those times, they do have it saved there that you can see the whole thing. So to get started, once you've created your account and maybe watch the video, you want to start a new project. So really, to start a new project, you're going to hit the big yellow button on the home page. So this here, new project right there. And then you want to type in all the information in here. So whatever you're going to call it, you need to put in the address, including the zip. I was practicing this week, and I was trying to do my parents' house just to get ready for this webinar, and I didn't put in the zip code, and I don't know where we were, but somewhere in the desert somewhere. So make sure you have your zip code in there. This description is really helpful. At least for me, I do the same property a lot, because this is the example we use in the classroom. This is a building on campus. And I have so many different versions of it. So you might want to put a description in there, maybe the date, something like that. So that is helpful to keep all your designs in order. So if you wanted to follow along, this is the curriculum that is posted on the solar design, the Create Energy, all of the curriculum here, including the instructor materials. There's an instructor guide, some student materials, the next gen science standards, and the energy literacy standards. The example here is this location. So this is a this is a building on my campus. This is a building that my students use a lot for different things, because it's a residential type building that just happens to be on our campus. It's nearly south facing, so it's a really good location for solar. So we do a lot of projects on there. And actually, because this is where our energy building is, we can walk right over and check that out a lot. So it's very convenient for us. But if anyone is following along here, this address is my campus, and it's the whole campus. So it's not going to go to this building. It's going to go to some building over here. So you're going to have to scroll down a little bit. If you're putting in your house, your own property, you're not going to have to worry about that. If you're following along with me, yeah, you might be going way over here. So you just want to scroll out and click on this little white Cape Cod style house right there. So to start, we're going to select the roof area, and some of the operations are kind of just like PV watts. So under the mechanical systems, you're going to select new field segment, and you want to click the corners of the roof, just like you would in PV watts. And once you're done highlighting all that, you're going to double click it. So let's go in there, and we can take a look at an example I've already created. So we'll go into System Designer here. So this is the property. If you've just typed in the address, it's going to take you over to this building. So this is my whole campus. I don't know why our whole address is the same, so it'll take you here. But right here is the building that we're doing for this example. So we're gonna use the mechanical, and we're gonna select the corners of the roof. And since we've already done that, I can create a new field segment. And if I wanted to make, this is just another lot, I can This is a volleyball court. So I can create another filled segment there if I want, and I've created a new filled segment, and it's really just that easy. So once I made my square, I double clicked it. So you could create other roof areas over here if you wanted to. It's not a good orientation, but you could, or some ground mount or whatever. But what's really great about HelioScope is the database. So the database of modules is extensive. So if there's any brand of module that you're working with, or your solar panels, whatever brand you want to put in here, it defaults to whatever, but you can type in pretty much anything and say, I just want to have a 300-watt panel. And let's see what kind of 300-watt panels, look at how many different brands I have. It's pretty much anything you want is in here. So I haven't been looking for something and not find it. So one of the tricks here that I think in the video, the 5-minute video is really too short. They don't really, what happened to that field segment, is aligning the modules. So in the video, the 5-minute video, they go really, really, really quick and say, oh yeah, you just do this to align the modules. So let me go back here. I lost my modules for field segment 1. So what kind of modules? I'll go back to another one. So when you first create that, you saw my other design, the modules were kind of off sequence and they weren't in the right order. And you can right click anywhere here and say align modules on click. And every time I do that, it's going to reorder them. And some designs are not terribly good, some are better. So you kind of just trial and error till you get where you like it. Now, if you're following along with me, you'll see that your modules probably aren't in the straight line that mine are, because what you need to do is click on the edge, one of the edges, and you want to set your top edge or the bottom edge. So if that's your top edge, now it looks a lot better. Some other things we can do as well is, hey, why we got this one module over here? We can remove it. So when you're right clicking to align your modules, you kind of want to play around with it a little bit. So this is something that the students always had trouble with. Why aren't they straight? Why aren't they, it took a little while, and their video, very good, a lot of information in 5 minutes, but it didn't really, I had to play around with that quite a bit there. So you can spend some time on that. And again, the default here is this Rec Solar. I was doing Panasonic. I spell it correctly, but yeah, so here, look how many different Panasonic modules you can find whatever you're looking for, and it'll automatically default to, it'll reset that. So that is our mechanical, that's our panels. That's the first thing we're going to do. The next step is we're going to move over to keep ounce. So what's kind of interesting about this design software is I can model the shading. So here I've already created a model for this tree, and I can create keep ounce. So if there's an area of the roof that maybe there's some mechanical equipment, there's a chimney, there's some plumbing or something that I want to keep out. I don't want to have any panels there. Again, I'm just going to draw it on. Where do I want to keep out? Double click. And now that area is not going to allow any panels. So my design won't have any panels there. And I can, if I need to have more of a setback or whatever, I can put that information in. The default from shade, I think, was 10 to 2. Yeah, the default for shade is 10 to 2. I changed it 9 to 3. You can set that for whatever time you want. So when you're modeling this tree, you can set what times you don't want it to be shaded. So the shade analysis will actually say, hey, is this module going to be shaded from this tree? Maybe first thing in the morning, it might be shaded, so on. To create a tree, very simple. I'm going to draw this tree here. You're just going to use your cursor to make it bigger or smaller. It might be helpful to know, I know this Google image is a little bit old, so those trees might not be that size anymore. So you can manually put in the height or the radius if you don't want to draw them on. Or maybe hey, the homeowner planted trees right here, so we can model them as well. And if I'm not happy with that, I can just delete it. So those are the keep outs. Pretty easy. You got to play around with it a little bit, but pretty easy. The last thing you really want to think about in your design is your electrical. So here you can design your inverters and your optimizers if you want to use them. So again, just like the modules, there's a lot of different inverters in the system here, and it will automatically size them for you. But you can put in all kinds of different, whatever brand inverter you want. You can drag and drop where you want it. So I know this building, so I want to put the inverters over here because that's where the electrical panel is right over here. So I'm going to put them over there. So if you want to add optimizers as well, you can do that. But what my favorite thing about HelioScope is right up here. So there's a little button that says SLD. SLD, single line diagram. And if you take a look at this, how quickly we got a single line diagram for the components we chose, has all the specs on them, and has a wiring diagram. So I have our students do some of the permitting paperwork that they might have to submit as part of their project, and single line diagram, very important. So it needs to be in all of our documentation. Here we have all the module specs. So we can go back and actually, hey, I have 2 inverters here. What if I want to go to this one and just have 1 inverter? And it will automatically update that. And I zoomed way in. So I can snip this real quick and include it in any permitting. Here I got an idea of how long of wire I need, what size wire, all that good stuff. So that's the basics of creating your design. So we did the electrical and the single line diagram. So you just click that SLD button in the upper right hand corner in the design. So now we want to go into the report. So this is really what the meat and potatoes of our HelioScope. So I can go back to the map or in the SLD. I want to go to save and exit. And this is my design that I was just playing with. This is the one I was using. So there's a couple different things here. So we have our conditions. So this is our TMY data, the condition set. The shading, I have not done this, but it appears that if you have a solometric sun eye, you can actually upload the data from that and get some more accurate shading than other than just the modeling of the tree you built. You can share a link. This is kind of cool. If you want to create a model and share it with another user, you can work together. I have to note that it is like Google Docs. It saves the latest version. It doesn't matter who is editing it. It saves the latest version and you can't go back. So be careful who you're sharing with. Or as you can see, I have a lot of different examples. I can create a new one and just copy and share, like, hey, edit this one. So that way so I can create that new design and we can go back and I can share that one and say, hey, we're only going to edit this one, and then we'll make sure we have that original version there. So that's nice. You can share a link or you can add a user. So I'm going to try this. I haven't done this yet, but share with a student so that way they can edit a design I gave them. But what's really, really cool about this is going to reports. So when you go to reports, so I have a lot of different designs here and we need to simulate it. So I created a design. So it actually, we have to hit that yellow button again to simulate it. It just takes a few seconds. And now I can take a look at that report. So here is a report that we've created now. How long do we spend? 10, 15 minutes. I've already uploaded this logo. So in the instructor instructions, I can show you it. I go through step by step how to add a logo here. But here we have a whole lot of information. We have our losses, we have our production. We can open this up and you can see how much we're producing each month. A lot of good stuff. Here's our design, all this good stuff. So this we can download as a PDF. So this can go right to a customer if you like. We can also download a CSV file. So this is a really great add-on if you'd like. I do a lot of data analytics in our programs. So this is the CSV data. So CSV, the TMY data. So we have 8760 data points. That's hourly data for the whole year. We do a lot with this in our program. If you're going to look at any, can you offset any demand charge? You know, we can take a look at that. You know, if you do anything with pivot tables, or you want your students to do any data analytics, there's a lot here that we can dig through. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but there's a lot of opportunity here in this immense amount of data. What else can we do here? So yeah, this report is pretty cool. There's a lot of good stuff here. We can see our losses here. So I have thought about maybe an extension is giving students a project and seeing if they can reduce those system losses. So I know this design isn't the best. If you look here, the inverter losses are 7.8%. And if you go up here and you dig into some of this reporting, well, I have a 12 kW inverter, but I only have 8.4 kW modules. So my load ratio between my inverter and my modules, I've oversized the inverter. So I'm going to have some system losses there due to the inverter. So that might be an opportunity for, you know, hey, well, let's go back and try a smaller inverter, or one that's better matched. So let me go back here. So we can download in that report. You can get the TMY data. You can download as a PDF. You can add a logo. So a lot of different things you can get with that report. And you can see how quickly we can generate that. But we can go into more depth as well. So some curriculum add-ons that I really think I would like to do in the future is really digging deep into that report. What else in that report? So I put this here. You can see 7.8% losses from that inverter. We can definitely better size our inverter, and probably be a little bit cheaper as well. Maybe looking at we don't have a lot of shading in our system, but you could design a system and see if a student could reduce the shading. What I assign is, usually we do HelioScope for the first time on a property. I know usually that white house that we just did, something they're comfortable with. And then I have them design a property of their own choosing. We can also download the CSV file and really look at the weather data and maybe compare it if you have the hourly energy use of a facility, and see if you can match that with the solar. So these are some example projects that a past student who works in the field was doing. So this is a project he did, and you can see he put in a keep out here, and we have our design here, and we can get that single line diagram very, very quickly. Very nice. Really useful to have. We get an idea of how much wire we need, what size wire, and all the specs on the module and the inverter, which, you know, are the important things for the disconnects, and, you know, to put that wherever your disconnects are. So what's new? So I haven't spent a whole lot of time on this, but since the merger with Aurora, I now have options in this beta version. So I know, Ken, I think you had done some other things in their beta version. So I started playing around with it this week, but there's a lot more detailed financial configuration. So in the beta version now, they're giving the customer options with the cash, a loan, and power purchase agreement, and also including commercial depreciation. There's a lot more financial metrics, including payback, net present value, internal rate of return. You can now build a carport or a shade structure. I don't think that was there before, which is kind of interesting that you can build a carport there. And there's definitely a lot more reporting options in the templates. So I want to just walk through this here very, very quickly. All projects. So I'll show you this one. This one I just very quickly tried to do for my parents' house because I was playing around with it, and I've been trying to get my parents to get solar for years. So I modeled this tree here, and you can see they have a big roof space. They live out in the country. There's farms all around, so there's plenty of places to put solar. But I only spent a few minutes coming up with the design. So with the new reports, This is the original report that we would have gotten, but this is in the beta version. So we can get this really detailed residential report. So this has a lot of graphics, and this is not my parents' house. This is just their default graphics, and some of the wording here. This is actually the team at HelioScope, not me. But some of the things they put in here that makes it really professional looking. Now, their average cost, I don't know where this data is coming from because I didn't put any information about my parents' property in there as well. But so I don't know how they got this energy offset. But they're using here the upfront system pricing. They're using $250 a watt installed. Their incentives are including here. This is only the ITC tax credit, so the 26% federal tax credit. So there's no state incentives, no local incentives, no SRECs are included here. So the numbers aren't terribly accurate, but they do give a payback period based on this information and based on, I think, an average electricity price. So you can see they give you a net present value, a return on investment, assuming these values. They're showing a cash flow based on that electricity production. And what's kind of nice, they do include this environmental impact. So where all this information came from, as I said earlier in the program, I aligned my program to the NABCEP technical sales exam, and it looks like HelioScope is really trying to align to that as well. So some of the items in the NABCEP technical sales are the conceptual design, the financial cost incentives, financial benefit analysis, financing, non-financial benefit analysis. These are the items that NABCEP said that is super important. So it looks like HelioScope is now presenting this as well. So these are things I have our students include in a report. The simple proposal is I think it's a little bit nicer. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it has some information there as well, the same information. I haven't been able to dig deep in where they got this average bill. That might be a national average bill. They are making some assumptions here. I don't know if I agree with the 6% annual price inflation on utility expense. But there we go. So these are some of the new things with the new version of HelioScope, which you can access for free as an educator. And we can get some shade reports as well. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for attending today. Please sign up for a free trial of HelioScope. You can extend it during the semester. Usually it takes a couple hours just to send an email, and they usually extend it right away. And there are very detailed lesson plans and instructor guides at the Create Energy under teaching materials under the PV. So thank you guys.
Jennifer, let me interject there. I've gotten a couple questions in the chat coming across here, and maybe the first one that I'll ask is in regards to that beta version, because I played around with that a little bit myself. One question was, can you model ground mount systems? And I'll just mention, we've actually done that at Madison Area Tech College. It does model ground mounts, and the beta version does actually model single axis trackers as well, which is kind of a nice new feature. But here's a question that I don't know the answer to, Jennifer, and you might, and that is, do we know if the beta version will still be developed or supported after this merger with Aurora Solar?
I have no idea.
That's what I kind of suspected as well, but I figured I'd ask and see if you had any inside information.
Yeah, I know Ken and I had talked when they announced this merger, and I did attend their webinar, and there was a lot of questions, and most of them were on price, or the questions they answered were on price. A lot of questions were not answered, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
We'll just have to wait and see. I'm sure it'll be forthcoming. Here's another one for you. Is the software capable of modeling both string inverters as well as microinverters and systems with DC optimizers?
Yes.
There you go. Yes. I figured that.
I have not done much with optimizers, but you do have the option with the optimizers, and you do have microinverters in there as well.
And then our friend Andy McMahon from Central Carolina asks, are you able to enter the slope of the various roof sections?
Yes. And maybe I didn't go over that, but when you're modeling under mechanical systems, let me get back there, and I can show you. Under the mechanical systems, you can enter it'll come up with what they think it is, the roof slope, and then if you actually know it, you can go back in and type it in. So like this, I probably already put it in there. Under this field segment, it's going to put in the tilt. So I know this is a 45-degree tilt, so I probably put that in there. So it's going to give you an estimate of what they think it is based on the Google Earth drawing. And they do a pretty good job with the azimuth. That's really close to the actual azimuth of that location. They're better at that, but the roof tilt, I think it said it was 18 degrees. And no, I know that roof, it's 45, so you can type in whatever.
It's kind of amazing that it can guess at that angle at all, actually. When you think about off of a two-dimensional photo, that they can make any kind of guess as to whether the roof is pitched or flat is pretty impressive.
I think it's really impressive that how detailed the area gets when you're just drawing this on. And you can do this even in Google Maps, is you're drawing an area and you can measure. I mean, I want to order my panels based on that measurement. I'd actually want to go up and put a tape measure on the roof, but I can get a pretty good estimate using just Google Maps.
Yeah, that's incredible, considering it's essentially a two-dimensional picture that you can get dimensions that are even close is impressive. I have another question for you here, Jennifer. I think one of the interesting things you showed us here was that automatically generated one-line diagram. Because that's something that, you know, students have to generate, and everybody is required to submit for their interconnection submission. The question was, how accurate are the wire sizes on that diagram? And does the software also size conduit for wire fill?
That's an excellent question, and I don't know the answer. That is it. I don't know enough about conduit to say. I don't think it does anything for conduit.
I'd be impressed if it did, but it would also surprise me if it actually did that calculation. And I don't know if I'd necessarily trust it without double checking.
Yeah,
but good questions. I mean,
that's a good question. I can't really answer that.
Maybe something for their beta version too, if they continue to develop that software. And then another question we had was, you demonstrated the export of the data into the CSV file. Do you know what the time increments on that file is when they export the data?
It's hourly.
It's hourly. Okay.
Yeah, it's hourly. So you have 1 hour, 24 times 365. That's 8760. So it's it is, the timestamp there is every hour. Yeah,
I think the question there, I'm kind of paraphrasing a little bit, but it was, you know, most demand charges are based on 15-minute increments. So, you know, the question was, how do you resolve the data export from the solar with the demand data of a building? And I guess what you'd probably need to do is, you know, massage that data a little bit before you put it into some sort of a analysis if you're trying to do it on 15-minute increments. Yeah,
we have done that in our energy management program. I know we've done that in some of the classes, that they kind of have to massage that as well, like get that, you know, basically write a program or a little macro to change that 15-minute data into hourly data, so you can compare the two.
Yeah, or take the hourly data and sort of read in between the lines and interpolate to generate 15-minute increment data. I know some of the folks in the Create network use the NREL SAM modeling tool, the System Advisor modeling tool, and that expects 15-minute input. So we'd probably have to write some kind of a macro and put it in Excel first, and then add in those extra little lines of data for the quarter of the hour and half hour timestamps, and then input it into SAM. But that's a good skill for students to learn if you're teaching them how to do data analytics. So because you're never going to have if you're merging data sets, you're never going to have them all in the exact same format. So you have to be able to get those and reconcile those kinds of discrepancies. And let me just say, if anybody else has questions, I've been getting a couple across the chat. You can either enter them in the chat room and address them to everyone, or if you'd rather sort of stay anonymous, you can address them just to myself and I'll interpret for you there. I do want to share a couple closing remarks too, just to let folks know about upcoming programming. And maybe while I'm sharing my screen, if anybody has any more questions for Jen, you can type them in the box. And let me see if I can switch back over here. Let's see, share screen. Here we go. So I would tell folks, if you haven't visited recently, please check out the Create Energy website. It's create.org. This presentation has been recorded and it will be published on the Create website under the events tabs for webinars. You can also go under the teaching materials section, and the lesson that Jennifer has put together along with all of the instructor materials as well as the student handouts and the cross-reference documents to the teaching standards is available on the website for download. So we'd encourage any of you to take a look at that if you think about using it with your students. And we'd also be interested to hear your experiences with your students if you have the opportunity to pilot that lesson. I'll also just mention this is just one of several different lessons that Create has developed on solar energy. You can find all of those on the website createenergy.org. And if you're not already on our mailing list, you can sign up for our mailing list at that time as well. So with that, let me just check the chat, Jennifer, to see if we have any other remaining questions. I have to stop my share there and just flip over. One more question that came across. Do you have a sense how common or how well used or what kind of market share does this software have with solar contractors and installers? Do you find a lot of your industry partners using this particular software, or is it a niche product? And maybe you can comment on that. Oh, I think you're muted, Jen.
Yeah, so like I said, I only started using it because one of my students was interning and said, hey, let's check this out. So, I mean, that's how I get into different software. Some other of my graduates are using Solar Graph. That's what I've heard a lot more about recently. I don't know anybody using Aurora because it is thousands and thousands of dollars. So I really don't have a sense of what the market share is on that. Sorry.
I don't either, but I can share an observation for people that are joining us here today. We recently issued a request for proposals at Madison College for a solar installation, and we received, I think, 12 or 13 proposals. And out of that batch, I think about half of them were using HelioScope to model the system. Now maybe that's just reflective of, our area here in the Midwest, but, it was pretty common. I think the other one that we saw used a lot was Energy Toolbase was another modeling program. And of course, lots of people use PV Watts too, but by comparison, PV Watts is primitive compared to the things that you can generate with HelioScope, and you don't get those nice sort of glamorous looking reports out of PV Watts. So.
And the price.
Well, that was one other question we got. I almost forgot to circle back. Do you know, in that beta version, is it possible to insert your own images in that file? Like if you wanted to insert a logo for your company or the actual pictures of your personnel?
Yeah, all of that is editable. I only spent, a half hour playing around with it. So I just use their default images. But yeah, you can change all of that. So, they had the pictures of their CEO and so on, but you can put your employees and your, the default pictures of maybe an install that your company had done. So all of that is editable. And I would like to dig a little deeper into their financial analysis, because I kind of back calculated, well, what installed price are they using? You know, where did this number for incentives come from? Because this is something we do with our students. So even in the state of Delaware, it depends who your provider is, what incentives you're eligible for. So your payback's going to be different if you have this provider versus this provider. So there's a lot of assumptions in there, but yeah, all of it's editable.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing for students to be aware with any modeling software, is that you always have to check those default values, right? Because the output of your model is only as good as the data that you put in the front end. So that is an important take-home lesson. Well, I think we've exhausted all of our questions, Jennifer, so that's probably a good place for us to conclude. Thank you for joining us today and for sharing this information with us. I'm sure this lesson will be of value to a lot of educators. I know we're teaching the HelioScope software at Madison College now, and it's really nice to have the instructional materials that you created to be able to use with our students. And thank you to all of our participants for tuning in today. And we hope to see you on a future Create webinar event. And with that,